How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, this is one of them videos. Go get your shit. I'm going to give you plenty time. All right? Now, I ain't got no sleep, because when I get curious about something and I start researching, I lose track of time. So I'm about to expose the DA that's involved in our royal son's Arbery murder. And it's some stuff I'm going to break down. So, y'all ain't going to miss nothing, because I know some of y'all ain't getting your notifications and stuff. As soon as this video is over with, shoot right over to True Royal. All right? I did some very deep research. I have something to read to the royal family. I have videos for y'all to watch. I have audios for y'all to listen to. And we gonna hear this wicked bitch spew her lies. And I was able to really bring, because see, when you listen to like mainstream media, you get all, we all start sounding the same. So you got to get local, and you got to go deep, and you got to know where to go. Or sometimes it will present to thyself. But I mean, the shit that I found so far, and I got other stuff too. I ain't gonna give up my resources where I'm getting this, but the shit is juicy. And I'm getting ready to expose this lying to the motherfucking core bitch. So, first, we're gonna get into this video to set the stage.
Live from the local station, News 4 Jax starts now.
New information in the Ahmaud Arbery murder investigation. The News 4 Jax I-team has uncovered the former police officer charged in the shooting, Gregory McMichael, worked for years in the Glenn County District Attorney's Office without maintaining proper certification to be a law enforcement officer. What's more, the I-team has also found out that his boss, DA Jackie Johnson in Brunswick, was informed of this and asked state authorities to overlook what she called a, quote, embarrassing mistake.
I-team investigator Kelly Wiley and News4Jax reporter Janice Harris are covering new angles of the Ahmaud Arbery investigation. We begin with Kelly with what she's learned about Gregory McMichael, and that's not all. Kelly?
Yeah, at 5 o'clock, I told you that the Attorney General was now trying to open a DOJ investigation and GBI investigation into prosecutorial misconduct on the part of the Brunswick District Attorney and another district attorney involved in this case. Now we've been digging through the personnel file of Gregory McMichael, who worked here at the Brunswick District Attorney's office, and found that DA Jackie Johnson intervened on his behalf before when he was having serious issues with his training and certification. One of the men charged with felony murder in the deadly shooting of Ahmaud Arbery, captured on cell phone video, is a retired chief investigator in the Brunswick District Attorney's Office. The former law enforcement officer retired from the office in 2019. Personnel files obtained by the News4Jax I-team today show in 2014, Chief Investigator Greg McMichael and his boss, DA Jackie Johnson, learned he was not properly certified to be a law enforcement officer after failing to maintain annual training hours with Georgia Post. That's the agency that certifies all law enforcement officers in the state. Specifically, McMichael lacked firearms qualification and use of deadly force courses. A memo inside his file showed McMichael said he knew he had been behind in hours, but recently discovered that he had not had arrest powers since January 2006. In the 2014 letter about the situation, an investigator told DA Jackie Johnson, quote, in 3 of the years listed, Greg failed to qualify or have the use of force training, and that because he had not had arrest power since 2006, liability of improper actions by Greg would fall on him, the district attorney's office, and you personally, referring to DA Jackie Johnson. McMichael told investigators the lapse in training was due to 2 heart attacks, his wife's cancer, and a subsequent bankruptcy over medical bills. McMichael was ultimately granted a waiver from Georgia Post after Jackie Johnson personally addressed the council on his behalf. After Post granted the waiver, Johnson wrote the director saying, "This situation has been a great embarrassment to me and investigator McMichael and had negatively impacted her office." Personnel files show that ultimately in 2018, he had another issue with missed training hours. Post issued McMichael an emergency suspension. They pulled his certification, took his badge, gun, and police car, and he was reassigned to desk duty at the Camden DA's office. He worked there for months until he retired in 2019. Our News4JAX I-team also learned that Georgia Post has since opened up an ongoing active investigation into McMichael again. And keep in mind, he's been retired since 2019. They would not say what this investigation is into, but we are working to learn more. Something of note, we reached out to the Brunswick District Attorney's Office to ask about this information we found about his certification and training in the personnel file. We have yet to hear back. But one of our specific questions was if he had made any arrest during that period of time that he did not have arrest powers. We are working to learn that information. Reporting live in Brunswick, Kelly Wiley, Channel 4, the local station.
Okay, so I have set the stage, my royal family. So let's get over here. I want to set that right there. I want to keep it right there. So far, she has always covered for his dumb ass. Because you see what his dumb ass produced. A retard. And all that about his little personal shit. No, he couldn't physically pass anything, and he couldn't pass anything that he could write. And anytime his greasy, murderous ass got in any situation, he would go to her ass, and she covered for him, And now I have something to read to the royal family. Before I get the ranting, I gotta keep my focus on this deep research that I have done for the royal family. So, let's see what we got here. So I'm gonna read a little something to the royal family. I'm not gonna read the total, but I have to read a body of this in order to continue to set the stage. And the title here is Glenn County Fires Back After DA Jackie Johnson Blames PD for Arbery's Case Failures. Now everybody is investigating, throwing names here and there because see, when that time elapsed, other people were included in this. And let's not lose sight when I get ready to read what I'm reading is that there was an issue in making an instant arrest. So that's going to smoke out the very pigs that were supposed to do their job. But when the whole shit went down, the first thing probably happened is he either threw out, her name, called, the DA. I got her number, and they're going to have to start checking phone records, and that's going to come into play too. Or we know this was a setup that they had shit probably even set before they even killed him. It could go that way too, where he done already informed her that, there's this black man, breaking in people's places and stuff. And me and my son, Jeffro, we gonna ambush them and kill them. And she like, okay, once it go down, let me know, and I got you covered. It could go either way, my royal family. There's many moving parts. So, the Glenn County Board of Commissioners issued a statement Saturday. Now, they working on a Saturday. These people, I'm telling you, these people then got themselves knee deep in some country shit. On behalf of the county, in response to a press release issued late Friday night in which Brunswick Judicial Circuit District Attorney Jackie Johnson placed blame on the Glenn County Police Department for the breakdowns in Mr. Arbery's case. Johnson has came under fire in recent days after a leaked video showing the moment leading up to the February 23rd fatal shooting of Mr. Arbery went viral. A heightened level of media coverage has highlighted the lag time between Johnson's recusal from the case due to the fact that Greg Michaels was employed by her office as an investigator, and the Glenn County Police Department supposed desire to immediately arrest both Travis and Greg McMichaels in the aftermath of the shooting. Okay, now I didn't already set the stage that we see what kind of history they have by playing that 4-minute video. Okay, as we continue on. But Friday evening, Johnson, her ass, placed blame on the police department and denied claims by 2 Glenn County commissioners that anyone in her office told investigators not to make an arrest of the McMichaels, a statement in the contradiction to at least the Glenn County Police Department employees privy to the conversation. And I got a real juicy, extra bonus audio bombshell. I'm talking you bombshell, my royal family. Everything I'm getting ready to bring the royal family, juicy. So as we continue on, Commissioner Murphy and Brooke have chosen to make baseless, false accusations against DA Jackie Johnson in an attempt to make excuses and ignore the problems at the Glenn County Police Department for which they are ultimately responsible. Acting Police Chief Jay Wiggins has indicated that it was a mistake that then Police Chief John Powell did not immediately call in Georgia Bureau of Investigations to investigate the case. It's a lot of people involved in this. As evidenced by the events of this week, the GBI was able to investigate, make a probable cause determination, and make arrests within 2 days of receiving the case. That is what a law enforcement agency does. And if the Glenn County Police Department is unable to make a probable cause determination on its own, why do we have a police department? I totally agree. Under Georgia law, the DA has no arrest power. Rather, it is the duty and the obligation of the law enforcement officer to determine probable cause for arrest. The DA is available to advise on the law, or the DA's office willingness to be available to advise law enforcement officers on matter of the law is now being used by the Glenn County Police Department as an excuse to pass the buck and fail to act. I mean, they was out there, our royal son bleeding out. I don't know how true it is, but I heard that they left him there for a long time and they trying to figure out what the fuck to do as our royal son bleed out and was dead right there. And they don't know what to do with thing 1 and thing 2. They murdered him They ambushed him in cold fucking blood. As I continue on, when two assistant district attorneys were contacted by the Glenn County Police Department on February 23rd, 2020, they immediately cite a conflict of interest and slated our office could not be involved. Our office offered to facilitate getting assistance from another district attorney's office. Ooh, this shit is messy. At no time on February 23rd did District Attorney Jackie Jackson had any conversation with Glenn County police officer about the case. Further, no assistant DA attorney in the office directed by Glenn County police officer not to make an arrest. Okay? Not to make an arrest. While our office did assist in putting the Glenn County Police Department in contact with the DA in the Waycross Circuit, we did not direct his actions or appoint him to the case. Rather, that was done by the Attorney General Office of the State of Georgia. Our office made the Attorney General aware of our conflict and recused by a letter on February 25th, 2020. All right. I'm going to leave it right there. Now, this is where you're going to see what I'm getting ready to want y'all to listen to. The DA, her ass, on the 11th, went to a show called Butch and Bob Show and ran her damn mouth. Now, we're going to listen to her excuse and to show you how not bright she is. She don't have no counsel with her or anything. Show you the arrogance of these people. And we're going to listen to her lie. So let's get into it. And then the next one is, oh, I can't wait for the next one. I'm talking about juicy. Damn, this is juicy.
Big Dog WIFO, time for the world famous Butch and Bob Show on WIFO, brought to you by Murphy Builder Supply and Nips Car Wash. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Jonathan. We've got a special guest in the studios with us, and we do appreciate her giving us this opportunity. Again, a lot of people want her time. A lot of people have been looking for her, but District Attorney Jackie Johnson's in the studio with us. And, Jackie, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, Bob.
Need to get a little bit closer to the microphone.
Okay.
I want to start with you address it in your press release, but I want to start with the accusations by the two Glenn County commissioners, Peter Murphy and Alan Booker, because they came out this past Friday. They're on TV saying that they wanted, or that they talked with the Brunswick police, and that the police stated they wanted to make an arrest right away, but you advised them not to. Any truth to that?
No, that's absolutely not true. I was watching television Friday night, and I saw my face flash up there, and then I saw that quote, and I was just horrified, because that's so far from the truth. It's just a straight up lie. And so, you know, I'm devastated by this. 20 years of working in the criminal justice system and upholding the law and trying to do things right, and then you have two people say this, and it just catches national media as if it's the truth, and it's been reported over and over again, and nobody is reporting that it came from the Glenn County Police Department, which at the time when all this was going on, you know, really for probably over the last couple of years, we've had some corruption issues in the Glenn County Police Department, and my office has been at the forefront of trying to deal with some of those, and at the same time walk a line where we still have to help the police because that's our job and take their cases. However, there are some bad apples over there, and we've brought that to the attention of the county commission. There's been a grand jury presentment from last summer. There's been an indictment on 4 current or former police officers over there, including the police chief. So the people that are putting these lies out there have an incentive to put them out there. That's not getting reported.
Why do you think those two men would make this statement? Do you have any idea why they would go on TV and state a total lie?
I think it's retaliation for me being the whistleblower on their police department multiple times over the last year, I've met with different county commissioners. I've met with the county administrator. I've met with the county attorney, asking them to look at the issues at the Glenn County Police Department, and to no avail. And so at some point, when we had to dismiss 18 months worth of drug cases because of misconduct within the drug squad, the GBI came in and started an investigation, and we had hearings. All of these things started coming out, and I said, I can't turn a blind eye just because it's the chief of police or other police officers involved. The district attorney has an obligation to enforce the laws to police officers, to any other, just like they do any other citizen. And so in November of this past year, I brought in a special prosecutor, retired DA from Clayton County. I said, here's what I've got. Look at this and tell me, do you think this merits going forward with any criminal charges? And she spent over a month looking at everything, and she decided to go to grand jury with those charges, and that grand jury was 3 days after the shooting occurred. So a lot of the people that are putting this information out there, I believe, are doing it as a consequence of our trying to do our duty with respect to some of the administration and leadership over at the Glenn County Police Department.
Let's go over your timeline, because that's what's in question. When did you recuse yourself? How soon did you recuse yourself? A lot of people don't understand how the law works. The shooting takes place, police department shows up, they're the ones that investigate, and they're the ones that decide whether it's going to be arrested or whatever, right? I mean, that's how it works.
Only law enforcement officers have arrest powers in the state of Georgia. The district attorney's role is somewhat of a check and balance on law enforcement and to advise them on the law. District attorneys cannot arrest, and it's not our job to arrest. It's a job of a law enforcement officer to make a probable cause determination. That means more probably than not, a crime occurred in this county and this person committed this crime. That's what they have to determine at the time when they're on the scene, when they're investigating the case. February 23rd was my mother's birthday. I was at her birthday party. We were down at Jekyll having a birthday party for my mom, and I did not talk to Glenn County Police that day. One of my investigators contacted me and said he had heard something about there was a shooting in that neighborhood, and my investigator may be involved, or my former investigator. And I told the person that called me, I says, look, we cannot be involved in that. We cannot go out there. We cannot do anything. And that was the last I talked with anybody that day until later on that evening when I got contacted by my assistant district attorney saying, hey, police need some advice, and that's kind of where it went from there. And two assistant district attorneys had conversations with law enforcement officers that day, and it's my belief, of course I wasn't a party to the conversation, that immediately they said we have a conflict of interest and we can't be involved.
So no one in your office advised them not to make an arrest either, right?
No.
So that's just a total
That's
another
not true.
falsehood.
That's not true. I've got two attorneys. I trust them. It would not have been their duty or their obligation or their job to tell them one way or the other whether or not to make an arrest. I did reach out to try to get them, once I found out that they needed some advice and we could not advise them. I did reach out to the neighboring district attorney's office to try to get an attorney over there to advise them the following day. And that was I contacted George Barnhill on the way across circuit, and he indicated to me that he had an assistant that was one of his attorneys that was going to be in court in Brantley County. And so
let me stop this for a bit. Okay, this bitch is lying, and what she doing is very unprofessional. Okay, we have an active shooting. Okay, everything is flowing and moving, and something was said by the McMichaels, the senior McMichaels, to the cops before they was going to make the arrest. And they immediately started trying to reach out to her. And at the end of the day, no one was arrested. So she had to play a part. Who the fuck does she think she fooling? She had to play a part. Because this dude got her on speed dial. I wouldn't be surprised if he even dialed the number on his phone and handed it to the cops, because he likes to throw around her name and get him out of shit, and there's pictures of him with with the governor and all of that. And let's not forget when I played the first video, the other shit she been dealing with him since 2006 with his slow ass. As we continue on,
she would be able to come over, and ultimately that's what happened the following day.
So you requested Barnhill's come in the question too, because he has a connection with the office as well. Apparently his son worked in the DA's office, or works in the DA's office.
He does.
So why didn't we know that, and why did we go to Barnhill? So that's a big question, people. Why go him knowing there's a conflict already?
At the time, I was concerned about the conflict my office had, and I really didn't feel like it was a good idea, for knowing what the gravity of the situation was, for us to just tell the police, sorry, we can't help you. In retrospect, us trying to do a good deed and get them some help and guidance to do their job, essentially, is now being used against me. I reached out over there, and I think it's important to note there's 10 or 12 lawyers in that circuit, just like there is in ours. We routinely handle each other's cases as far as conflicts go, and it being the nearest DA's office, I just wanted to be able to try to get them somebody initially to help them make a decision. I didn't expect or try to direct him in any way other than, hey, will you go over and see if you can help him?
And this is a point that needs to be clarified. Hope you can clarify. You recommend, but who appointed Barnhill? Was he appointed by you?
And
or
I
was
didn't
he appointed
recommend.
by
I didn't recommend.
Yeah.
I just asked him to come over and see if he could help them or get somebody over there that could help them the following day. And I think it's important to know, initially the call came in, and it was represented to me. What I got from my assistant district attorneys is this is a burglary, and this looks like self-defense. That was from the first thing I heard about this case, and that's all I knew, is this was a burglary, and it looks like it was self-defense.
And where did that come from?
That came from conversations I had with my assistants who had spoken with the police there that day.
But Barnhill, again, I'm still trying to clarify, how did he get appointed the case? I mean, did he get appointed by the Attorney General, or did he get appointed by... How does it work? I mean,
after I got back to my office, I did a letter. This happened on a Sunday. The date on the letter, I had some trouble getting in contact with the right person. David McLaughlin, who used to be at that office, he handles those conflicts. Well, I didn't know that he had subsequently retired. So initially I sent the letter to the wrong person. It was dated February 25th. I'm not sure if I made a phone call up there trying to find out at some point who I needed to send it to, but we eventually sent a second one to the correct person on February 27th. So we sent 2 letters up there, and Barnhill was appointed by the Attorney General subsequent to that. I didn't talk with him.
Okay, now y'all reading what I got up here. This is a picture of DA Jackie Johnson with her former colleague, McMichael, the man who murdered Mr. Arbery. She blocked his and his son's arrest and then recused herself. See, she involved way much deeper than that. She running her mouth too much. Loose lips do truly sink ships. Okay, and I do agree. She need to go to jail. Now they talking about Barnhill, the other DA who claimed Mr. Arbery shot himself. You see how greasy these motherfuckers is? As we continue on.
Anybody at the Attorney General's office and tell them who to appoint. I just conflicted my office out, and I knew they would go through their procedure on how they would appoint.
Another big question people have, and I'm trying to get this as well, the timeline of the video. Was the video available as soon as the incident took place to the police department? Did the police department have the video? Did you have the video? Did you see the video? Did Barnhill see the video? Or did the video come out when everybody else saw the video?
I saw this video last week on television for the first time.
So you saw it at the same time everybody else?
I saw it at the same time everybody else did.
Do we know that Barnhill saw the video?
I don't know what the police, and Barnhill talked about. I have no reason to believe that they didn't try to make an honest decision at the time, but I don't know what evidence was available, what evidence they had. I didn't go to the police department. I didn't look at the evidence because I knew I couldn't be involved in the case. So I facilitated him to go and help them from that point on, I didn't want to know about the evidence, and I didn't ask about the evidence, and I didn't go and look at the evidence. I saw the video again and first time last week.
So you don't know if the police department had the video from the outset or not?
I don't know what
you
they
don't
had.
know that Barnhill had the video before he made this recommendation, because that's what looks bad. What looks bad is it looks like without the video, these guys are going to walk, because Barnhill gave out. How unusual is that for a DA to make a statement like that? That in his legal opinion, that they shouldn't be arrested and charged. Isn't that unusual?
I don't know if it's
what did he base that on?
I don't know if it's unusual or not, because I don't know what his process was, and I don't know what he saw and what he discussed with the police, because I wasn't a party to any of that.
And one thing that people
wait a minute. The reason Barnhill made the decision that he made, because she said, look after my boy and his son. She directed him to do what he had to do. So now both of them are ousting each other. I think somebody fucking stupid.
You understand Georgia law. You're allowed to explain that. A lot of people don't understand that, because that's what the McMichaels are claiming. They're claiming self-defense. They're claiming they had the right to make a citizen's arrest. They thought he was a robber in the neighborhood. Explain the Georgia law where a person can make a citizen's arrest.
I'm not familiar with all of that, and
You're
I'm
not
not
familiar with
familiar. I have been intentionally ignorant about the facts and law of this case, because I knew I could not have any involvement in the case. The one mistake.
What the fuck you talking about? You the DA? And you ignorant to the law? You lying, dusty bitch.
I made in this case, again, was trying to be helpful to the police, because I knew it was a serious situation, and somebody needed to make a decision about what needed to happen. We couldn't be involved, and so I offered to try to get help from a neighboring circuit. And in doing that, I contacted the closest person I know who handles a lot of conflicts, and tried to get him over there to give them some help. And from that point on, I've been out of this case. I have had contact with some of the victims' family, and I got some questions with some pastors and people came to see me in Brunswick as the case was going on, because they were concerned about it. And so I was concerned that the process work and that it move along. So when Mr. Barnhill conflicted out from him, it was important to me that the case continued to move. So
what part of the fucking case was continuing to move? You just said that you had nothing to do with it. Then you didn't have some contact with family and clergy and stuff like that, and you're supposed to stay out of it. And what you mean moving? The motherfucking case didn't move until the video was put out, because y'all had buried it. You think we dumb? You got us real fucked up.
After that, I met with, I guess it was the mayor and some other local leaders, and I assured them, that the process was, why I couldn't be involved, the process was going to take its course. And I did facilitate making sure that once we found out that Tom Durden would be appointed to the case, we did get with Glenn County, make sure that we expedited getting that file up there to Mr. Durden, because I wanted the case to move as quickly as possible.
Everybody you talk to, everybody you see, the GBI, everybody saw his press conference. Everybody claims, and common sense says, why wasn't the GBI called in immediately? We have the answer to that. Because
I don't
when the
have
shooting
the
takes
answer to
place
that,
in here,
because
and that's what most people do. The police department, sheriff's department says that we don't want to handle this. Let's call the GBI in for smart purposes. First of all, they don't want to be involved.
Bob, we wouldn't be talking if the GBI.
Why wasn't the GBI called in? That's the big
and I don't know the answer to that. I can speculate.
That's the $64,000 question.
Well, I can tell you this: I've got 9 police departments in 5 counties. I've got 5 sheriff's offices, and I can tell you on any given occasion, if something of this level happens, typically the GBI is called in. It's up to the law enforcement agency to make that determination as to, for example, the Jessup Police Department can call. And me not being on the scene and not knowing the information, I that's not something I feel is in my purview. I feel it's in the law enforcement office's purview.
So
at this time, when this case happened, I will say we were three days from going into a grand jury with an proposed indictment against the chief of police, and a lot of the material and things contained in that indictment emanated from a GBI investigation in which the Glenn County had called in the GBI a year ago. And so I can't help but think that maybe some of the reluctance to initially call the GBI on that day had something to do with that. The fact that there was an indictment pending or there was a grand jury proceeding pending, and that there had been notice that the police chief was under consideration for indictment. And a lot of that stemmed from an earlier GBI investigation from the year previous. I don't know if that kept them from calling the GBI. That could be a reason they didn't call the GBI. I don't know. I wish they had called the GBI.
So I guess, Jay, the person who would have called the GBI would be the acting police chief, right?
Well,
So
but the acting police chief came in after all of this happened. At the time, the chief of police was John Powell.
so he was still the police chief at that time.
John Powell was still the
he
chief
would be
police.
The one, but he's under indictment.
And now he's under indictment. And you know, again, I don't know directly who's saying these lies out there. I have been told that one of the sources for the lies would be the police chief that's under indictment.
Right, but see, that's the part that the national media has totally ignored. They're not going back to that fact. They don't mention that fact, and that seems to have played just looking at it totally, that seems to have some part in why the GBI wasn't called in. The GBI, indicted the police chief at the time. He's under indictment, so there seems to be some bad feelings between the police department and the GBI, so maybe that's why the GBI wasn't called in. I'm just, throwing that out there. That's something that has not been reported, the fact that the current, or the police chief at the time, is under indictment. And there's several officers also under indictment as well, right, in that department?
That's
He's
correct.
not the only one. So,
Former officers.
former officers. So they're no
Yes.
longer with the police department.
Yes.
Are they on administrative leave like the police chief, or are they been let go?
I know that the police chief is right now on administrative leave with pay. The rest, I can't really speak to the circumstances of why and how they left, but they're not employed there now.
You sent out a press release, at least defending yourself. You think this has helped since you released the press release, stating basically that these two commissioners are making these false statements? Do you think it's helped? Or, there seems to be a firestorm.
There's a
People are calling
firestorm.
through your head. They
There's
want you to resign. They want you out.
There's a firestorm, and a lie, makes it around the world a couple of times before the truth gets the chance to get out there. And all I can rely on is, the people that know me and know that I wouldn't do something of this magnitude. I don't fear the truth. I don't fear the truth, and I'm hopeful that this is investigated by the Attorney General, by the Department of Justice, and they can see what I did and see what we were doing was just trying to make the best decisions as we could at the time, and we were not trying to do anything to manipulate this case. Rather, we were trying to stay out of this case. But at the same time, as District Attorney, while I'm trying to stay out of the case, I feel like I've got an obligation to try to make sure the case moves forward like it should.
Did you just join us? A good segue. If you just joined us, District Attorney Jackie Johnson in the studio was talking about the case that's gotten national attention. Good segue, because the Georgia Attorney General Chris Garr over the weekend has asked the Department of Justice to investigate the investigation into Ahmaud Arbery's death. Garr has requested Bobby Christine, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Georgia, to lead and complete a transparent review of how the case was handled from the outset. Garr says we've requested the involvement of the DOJ since we first took this case. He says there are too many questions about how this case was handled and why it took 74 days for arrest to be made and 2 people charged with Arbery's shooting death. Garr says the actions of 2 South Georgia District Attorneys, Jackie Johnson of the Brunswick Judicial Circuit and George Barnhill of the Waycross District, figure to be central to the federal probe. So I'll ask you, have you talked to this investigator from the DOJ's office, or have you talked to the Attorney General at all, or where do we stand on that?
I have not. I expect there to be an investigation, and when these kind of lies get out there and get reported, it's got to get cleared up. And I welcome this investigation, because I know that when I have to rely on my faith and experience in the court system. When you do an investigation, you have to talk to actual witness. It can't be he said, I heard, she said. That kind of stuff doesn't enter into it. It's based on what actual witnesses and evidence can provide. And I'm hopeful that, an investigation is going to show the truth of what happened here.
How much you talked to Barnhill? Barnhill on the day of the shooting told police he believed that McMichael said just cause to pursue Arbery, who they suspect was a burglary in the neighborhood. Barnhill says Arbery was the aggressor and that McMichael was acting in self-defense. How much conversations have you had with Barnhill? Has he relayed that impression to you, or have you talked to him since this? Since you recused yourself?
When he sent his letter, I spoke with him that day. He had sent a copy of that letter, but he had said that he felt like he needed to recuse and that, somebody else needed to look at it. So I reviewed the letter that day. So I did speak with him that day. I've probably spent, other than, we talk about other things incidentally, so I don't know, there's probably some other conversations I've had with him, but specific to this case, the only thing of substance was when that letter, basically he's calling to say, hey, Jackie, I'm getting out of this case, somebody else is going to have to take it, and I've sent you a copy of this letter I've sent to the police department.
Once again, people tune in now. Go over the timeline from the shooting to how soon you recused yourself from this case. How soon did that take place?
Both of my attorneys that spoke with the police that day said we've got to recuse. We've got a conflict of interest. Both of them told them that day. I contacted Barnhill that day to try to get an attorney over there and said, look, we're not going to be able to help them. Can you send somebody to talk to them tomorrow? And at that point, I was out of it as far as I was concerned. And on the 25th, I actually got my letter to Atlanta. That would have been a Tuesday. I got the letter to Atlanta, went to the wrong person. We made a subsequent letter up there on the 27th, which would have been Thursday.
Again, this has gained national attention. Everybody in the world's weighed in on it, made comments about it. LeBron James, the president, Joe Biden. I mean, it's amazing how much attention this has gotten. And again, the question remains about the video. The question is, without the video, would there have been arrest at all? And I'd like to know what the timeline on the video was. The video made available at the outset, or did the video just come to light a couple of days ago or about a week ago when everybody saw it on the national news? You have any idea about the timeline on the video?
I don't know what was available at the time, because I don't know what the evidence is in the case.
What do we know about
I know that I saw that video on television last week.
And what do we know about the person that did the video? I saw his attorney and his fiancee on TV last night. They're getting death threats. They're saying he was just a bystander. He saw this taking place. He just filmed it. And like I said, my question is, everybody asked the question, did he withhold the video? Or he said he's fully cooperated. But I just wondered, the video just seems to be what caused the firestorm. My question is, when did the video become available to the police? When did the video become available to Barnhill? Did they have access to that video before they made these statements, or did they not have the video?
And I don't know the answer to that, Bob. I know that they went out there and they collected evidence.
I'm sure that's a question that the DOJ is going to get to the bottom
I'm sure they will. What the substance of the evidence was, I do not know, because again, I did not go over there. I did not look at the evidence, and I remained away from the evidence in the case because I was recused.
And where this goes forward is they've been arrested, they've been charged, they've been denied bond, but they've got to go before a Superior Court judge. That'll be the next step, right? They'll go before a Superior Court judge and seek a bond. He can give it or deny it, and then it'll proceed to the court system.
Correct.
Like all cases do, right?
Like any other case, that's correct.
And like somebody said wisely, that's why we have a justice system. That's why we have a court system. Thank goodness for that, because you don't
because
on
the truth
a 20-second video.
Because the truth is ultimately going to come out, and it's hard for people to see things like this on television and hear the things that they've heard on me for the last 3 days and not come to some sort of opinion or conclusion. But ultimately, whatever's going to happen on this case has got to be based on evidence and facts and what actually happened, the truth. And I don't fear the truth. I fear lies. I fear people trying to spin things for an agenda. But I don't fear the truth.
And the big question is what took place before the video started. What led to that? Normal people just don't drive down and pull guns on people, and so, there's a lot of questions out there that still haven't been answered.
I think there are a lot of questions
people just need to sit back and wait till it plays out and not make a judgment until all the facts are out there. So, it's a horrific thing to see on video. It's a sad thing for anybody to lose their life, but there's two sides to each story, and that's why you have a court system. That's why you have a judicial system, and it'll play out in the court system. But all this vigilante justice calling for people's heads, it's just, we've seen this before. We saw this, people jump to conclusions, and then when the facts come out, it's not what everybody thought it was. But again, I appreciate you coming here and being on the Butch and Bob show. Again, I just want you to clarify that those statements by the county commissioners.
I have to. All I have is my name, Bob. And
how long you been district?
I've been district attorney since 2010. I've been a prosecutor for 20 plus years. I take that responsibility very seriously. I feel like in my 20 years I've been able to help a lot of people. A lot of people have reached out to me in Wayne County and said, Jackie, we know you, and we know you wouldn't do something like this. And I just want to thank those people, because that means the world to me when you're seeing, your life flash before you and your reputation trashed all over the weekend. It means a lot that the people that care about you and know you and they know what kind of person you are would reach out to me and offer their support, because ultimately, again, the truth is going to come out on all this stuff. It's going to be painful for me in my office in the process, because we're under a cloud now because of this national news media that's based on a lie. But we're going to cooperate and be confident that we've done the right thing. We did the best we could at the time. Everything we've done is now being kind of put a spin on in retrospect, and that's being done, I think, to make this look nefarious from the start. When from the very beginning, all we wanted to do was try to help the police do what they needed to do on an important case, and we knew that our office could not be involved.
Yeah, so emphasize once again, the accusation came out of the weekend that you told police officers not to make an arrest at the outset, and that's totally false.
That's totally false. Jackie Johnson never talked to law enforcement officers that day.
None of them?
None of them.
And no one in your office talked to anyone at that?
Yes. 2 assistant district attorneys talked in my office to them that day.
Did they recommend not to make charges?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So how soon do you think the Department of Justice will be reaching out to you, and how soon you look forward to talking to them?
I look forward to talking to them. I hope, what I hate about these things is I know the nature of these things. They don't tend to go very, quickly, but I'm hoping that it'll move along, and then we can clear this up sooner rather than later.
Again, the video, the guy that did the video, like I said, his attorney was on TV. They're saying now he's under suspicion. Do you think he should be charged in any way? Does Georgia law, I know there's no texting and driving. How about video and driving? So he's driving down the road videotaping this. I mean, does he face any charges in that, or do you think he's just a good citizen that his attorney claims him to be?
Without knowing all the facts and knowing all the evidence in the case, Bob, I couldn't make a decision.
Right.
I couldn't.
Gotcha. So have you ever been in a firestorm like this before?
This is the first where I have become the story. And as a prosecutor, you don't want to be the story. I want it to be about the cases, the victims we represent, the work we do at the courthouse. And I've spent the last 20 years trying to make it about that, and now it's about me. And I'm not happy about that. But I've got to deal with that, and I'm confident that when if people can wait for all the facts to come out, they'll see that I was trying to do the best I could at the time under the circumstances, and I didn't have any ill intent here other than to make sure that the police had what they needed to do their job and that the case moved along.
Well, when you watch this national news or local news and they state all these false statements, do you scream at the TV, or are you looking to talk to these people? Because everybody seems to be looking for you. And like I said, I appreciate you being here on the Butch and Bob Show. This is the first time you've spoken since this began, and we appreciate you being here. But are you ready to talk to those people and clarify these statements, or what are you planning, and what's your plan from this point forward?
I don't know, Bob. Based on what's being put out there on television, I don't know that it makes a lot of sense for me to join in and try to fight fake news. And that's just the way I feel about it. I know you've got an interest in Wayne County. You cover the courthouse. You cover what our office does. You cover sports. You care about this community, so you care about trying to get it right because you live here and you're vested here. The news media in Atlanta, in Washington, in New York, they're looking for a sensational story that gets headlines and can carry the news cycle and get ratings, and it might tear the community apart. I mean, this has been devastating on Glenn County, on the people in that neighborhood, on the family down there. I mean, this has just been devastating for our community, and a lot of outside forces have come in, and Glenn County has been the subject of it, and it's not people that care about getting it right. I sat down with the Brunswick News on Saturday and tried to explain some of what happened, with them. and explained that this is all, this is just a straight up lie, that what's been being put out there. So I'm happy to sit down because, again, that's a newspaper that's got a 100-year history in that county, and they want to try to get it right. So to the extent that someone wants to talk with me and I feel like their intentions are honorable and they want to try to get the story out there, I'm happy to talk with them. But, based on what I'm seeing, I'm not so sure you can say that about national media at this point.
Well, you're seeking a third term. Again, we do have an election coming up, so people in Wayne County are going to make a decision when they go to the voting booth. You've been a friend of this program since you've been a DA. We've had you on here many times. Like I said, you know how this program works. We're just trying to get the information out to our listening audience, let them hear from those involved. Again, you've been attacked ever since this began. What part of recuse yourself from the case seems to be getting lost from a lot of people. But again, that's why I want you to give your timeline. You recused yourself almost immediately after this event took place because you knew there were conflicts involving your office.
Yes.
So I don't understand why that's not being made clear.
That doesn't fit the sensational narrative that I'm the bad guy here, and this is a horrible tragedy, and people can't see that video and not just be not just be sick about it, and and it's hard to see something like that and not believe something nefarious went on. It's hard to, and so I think now that it's out and the way things have happened, there tends to be an incentive to go back and put a spin on it that there's corruption and collusion and all kinds of things were going on that just were not. That's just not what happened. And as far as the election goes, that's not until November. I've got a lot of things to do between now and November, one of which is cooperate with this investigation and hopefully let the truth come out. And maybe the truth will come out by November. I hope that it does. And if it doesn't, I just have to rely on the people in Wayne County and the rest of the other counties to base their decision on what they know about me and my character and their dealings with my office, and not based on what they're seeing on television.
How difficult has this been for your family? You've been in the political field for quite some time. You know how it plays out, but this is going to be tough for your family to see.
Well, it was a tough Mother's Day because it's hard on my mom.
Well, again, we appreciate you coming in. It's always good to see you. Like I said, I appreciate you answering these questions. Again, the video is to me, the question, when did the video become available? I think that's a big point because that's the narrative that's being out there. Without the video, there may have not have been arrest at all. The GBI made it clear that watching the video, there's definite probable cause to make an arrest. So why Mr. Barnhill came out quickly and said, in his legal opinion, there was not enough to make an arrest, that they acted in self-defense, I guess he'll have to answer that, and I'm sure the Department of Justice will be asking him that question.
I can't speak for what his process was or what his decision-making process. All I can say is I've known George Barnhill for many years as a prosecutor over in the Waycross Circuit, and I've relied on him over the years. I consider him a man of integrity, and I know that he would have had some reasoning for coming to the conclusions that he did. That's all I can say.
But again, he was not appointed by you.
No.
You just made the recommendation. All right. Once you recuse yourself,
I didn't make any recommendation. All I did was
clarify what you did.
All I did was try to get them some help until the Attorney General could appoint someone to handle this case. That's all I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to say, you handle the case. All I was trying to do was say, we can't help you. Let me get a neighboring DA circuit over there to try to give y'all some advice until the Attorney General can appoint someone on this case. That's all I intended to do.
So the Attorney General was the person that appointed Barnhill, and then when Barnhill recused himself, then he stepped in and appointed Tom Durden. That's who's got it right now.
That is the sequence of events, and Tom Durden has the case now. That's
and he's been an attorney for a long time.
Tom Durden's been a district attorney in the Atlantic Circuit for 20-plus years.
I've seen him cover court cases over there in Long County many times. I've seen him in court. He's been there many, many years.
And before the video came out last week, Tom Durden actually did a press release saying that he had reviewed everything and he intended on proceeding to a grand jury. So Tom Durden came to a different conclusion than George Barnhill did. And again, I can't explain that because I don't know what they saw and I don't know what they looked at because I don't know the facts of this case, and so I can't really weigh in on that right now because I've never looked at the evidence in the case. Only thing I've seen is this video that came out last week.
Right. And you're not involved in the case at all at this point. No. You recused yourself early on.
That's correct.
So you still don't know why these two commissioners went out publicly and made these comments.
I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that I had their police chief under indictment who works for them, and they're not very. And you know, there's another ongoing political battle in Glenn County, and when all of these things have come out as to the police department and some of the things that have been going on in the last year, the grand jury recommended that the citizens of Glenn County be allowed to vote on whether or not they want to continue to have a police department. Most counties, as in Wayne County, don't have a county police department. The sheriff is responsible for county law enforcement, and then you have a city police department. The Glenn County citizens have never been able to vote on whether or not they want a police department. So one of the things the grand jury recommended last summer was that the citizens be allowed to vote. And one of the things I've done, I try not to be political, but things were so, the situation had gotten so bad with some of the things going on at the police department and the recommendations of the grand jury, I made those available to Senator William Ligon and Representatives Don Hogan and Jeff Jones. I made those available, and Senator Ligon actually took and sponsored a bill up in Atlanta to allow the citizens to vote on whether or not to continue to have a police department. The county commission has adamantly opposed that, and so we're on opposite sides of a political issue where, you know, from my standpoint, I have supported the citizens in Glenn County being able to vote on whether or not they want to have a police department. The county commission, of course, is opposed to that.
Well, we'll close on this. You've always been for justice, and I'm sure you want to see justice in this case as well, right?
I want the truth to come out, because I feel like if the truth comes out, Bob, people will see that you know, this for what it was. People trying to make decisions under the best they could under the circumstances at the time, and that's essentially what it is. I know it's easy to spin things in hindsight, but at the time, the people in my office and me, we were doing the best to make decisions under the circumstances.
Okay, we'll end on that note again. I appreciate again you coming.
Okay, my royal family. So basically, she's just covering her dusty ass. And usually if somebody is caring, they would give their condolences to the family. She don't give a damn. Now, I know this is very long, but it's very necessary, my royal family. I said I had a bonus audio. So we're going to get right into it. So we have this brother here, Alan Booker. He's a commissioner in District 5. And he got some things to say, my royal family. And when she found out he had some things to say, she kept saying the same repetitive shit she been saying. That she doesn't fear the truth coming out, but you fear something because you played a part in something. So, we're going to listen to this. It's about 10 minutes, and I'm going to wrap it up, my royal family. Okay. So it says here, TMT exclusive. DA Jackie Johnson hiding facts in Mr. Arbery's case, said Glenn Commissioner. Said Glenn County Commissioner Alan Booker. Juicy. So we're going to jump right into it. So this is 10 minutes and 38 seconds.
And the city of Brunswick is predominantly his district. He knows the folks, and he's been there. Commissioner, were you born and raised in Brunswick? Is Brunswick your hometown?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know the people. You've been there. Give us some sense of the mood, the feeling there, because we've had the last 48 hours have been something. We've had. Let's back up to February. When you heard about this incident and heard that Ahmaud had been killed, and subsequently learned that this narrative, the story that we were being told, wasn't quite what went down. were you surprised that there were no arrests made here
Here.
In the case?
I was completely surprised about not having an arrest, and the guys were, especially with the folk who did it right there. I could understand an arrest if they flee the scene of the crime, but for them to stay there, I was completely surprised. Not surprised about the racial profiling or it happening because of race, because, like you said, I grew up here, and I know that we have this element here, especially I believe it's a small minority of white folks that hate to that level, but we certainly have the same institutional racism issues that is inherent in this country.
You had a colleague, Pete Murphy, who made a statement that that the DA just blew it. She would not allow the police to arrest them. We've since learned they had all kind of incestuous relationship. The McMichael dad worked in the DA's office. It's all kind of, this case bounced around 2 or 3 other circuits, and they wouldn't take it. And although one of them then turned around and said, well, even if we did, we don't think they committed a crime here. Is this a case of small town justice? Is this a case of maybe they just trying to help their friend? Clearly there's some relationship issues. Or this just incompetence? We just didn't know what we were doing. What do you sense is working here?
It was a case of racism is what it is. And yes, favoritism because of relationships. From my understanding, the dad called the DA's office from the scene of the crime. So the DA knew about it immediately. And the protocol is to follow their lead by the police, because they're the ones that have to get the conviction. If the police arrest people and then they're not charged with anything, then it looks like they're just arresting people for nothing. So they have to work with the DA's office, and her office, and I believe she herself was involved from the very beginning. And you cannot tell me that he worked for her for 20 years and he doesn't have a cell phone number. I can't prove it right now, but that's what I believe. And
No, go ahead. I mean, that can be easily proved. And clearly, that was relationship. She worked for him for 20 years.
Right, and she certainly knew that when it went over to there's some discrepancy about who assigned it to the Waycross DA. Whether she told me herself, because I called her and asked her myself why there was no arrest. But I also called the county attorney. I called the county manager. I talked to our chair of the county commission and the interim chief of police. So it wasn't just her that I was inquiring about this, but I called her to find out. She told me, she never answered my question. Really, she tried to insinuate that the state did it, but I've heard that actually she orchestrated it, and she did it. Whether the state assigned it over there or not, but she knew that Barnhill, that his son worked for her, so that was a clear conflict of interest. But she said nothing. She didn't protest.
Let's so people understand. We have McMichael, who the daddy, Grady, whatever his first name is, he works for her for 20 plus years.
Correct.
This is Jackie Johnson, the DA. Now, let's make sure we're clear, because that's why I was making the distinction between the county and the city before. She's the district attorney for what? For Glenn County or for the city of Brunswick?
She is for the county. It's for 5 counties, actually. It's a district.
Okay. All right, it's like a district circuit. Right. Yeah, okay. So 5 counties that include Glenn.
Right.
So she will prosecute all those surrounding counties that include what? What do you know the counties in her jurisdiction?
From my understanding, it is Camden, McIntosh,
Okay.
Wayne,
All right.
Appleton, and Jefferson Davis, I believe.
Okay, so any felonies that derive, or any crime that derived out there, she's the prosecutor. So she says she's not going to do it. She sends it to another county, finds out that that county's the DA in that county's son worked for her as well.
Right, which she knew. And so it just so happened that the next day,
Lord
he comes
oh
out with
man,
statement.
it just gets better and better. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up.
You cannot.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner.
And the next day, he comes out with this letter that's been put out there now, saying it's justifiable homicide. Now, how can you look? And he has looked at that video. So how can you look at that video unless you see this young man as less than human? So I don't know what kind of human being that is that can look at that and say that was justifiable homicide. And
they were covering it up.
Right.
If this been the cover up from some. Now let's get back to because the more I read about Brunswick, let me first of all, I'm praying for you, my brother, to stay strong in it, because you all done had a series of issues. The police chief, you got interim police chief, because that police chief and another one and two officers were indicted in February for some shady business that they were involved in. On yesterday, you had another police, either in the county or the city, to kill himself. His, I guess, estranged wife and her boyfriend. What is going on down in this area? What is happening in this area?
Well, you must remember that Jackie had her hands in all of this stuff, and she when she came on board, she was appointed by the governor because the previous DA became a judge. She was appointed by the governor of Purdue.
Got you.
That case came up with Caroline Smalls, who was a white female, young girl, and two of the county police. They shot and killed her after a low travel pursuit, and blocked her in, and she did not indict them. She did not charge them, and she took that case, from my understanding, personally. And so one of those guys, he transferred out of the county over to the sheriff's department, and he recently died a couple years ago of cancer. And then the one you just talked about, the incident with Sasser, he got involved with some domestic stuff with his wife, and actually we tried to, from my understanding, the police tried to keep him locked up.
Yeah, right. They did everything. They strained it on everything else I read.
Well, that's where the tension in this new police chief that she recently indicted, that's where the tension came in at. It started. Because for some reason she didn't want Sasser in jail, from my understanding. And he ended up getting out, after he was arrested for beating up his wife. And he killed her and the husband and killed himself.
All right, Commissioner, we got to take another quick break, and I'm going to let you wrap it up, man. Let's take a quick break, then I want you to wrap it up and give us a sense of where you think all of this is heading. Last 24 hours, GBI get involved. In less than 48 hours after they get involved, arrests are made, bond denied today. Give me a sense of what the people of Brunswick are feeling. Do you think this is a step towards justice? We'll be back. Our special guest, and we're thankful for him, Commissioner Alan Booker from Glenn County. We'll be back. News and Talk 1380 WALK.
All right, my royal family, that was all that I could get. They didn't want the comeback part. I didn't get anything else. But if I find something more of what he has to say, I will keep the royal family privy on that. Now, after all that damn talking she did, and she did a whole lot of talking, the brother spoke about 10 minutes and showed what type of DA she truly is, where if it was somebody that looked like her, she did everything she could to keep him out of jail. And you just heard that tragically 3 people came up dead. And like he said before, if you heard him closely in the beginning of it, you can go back and play it, that it was like I said too, because I forgot that I heard that too, that when all this went down, Senior McMichaels called her directly because he know that she would get him out of this shit and stuff. And don't forget the first part of this video showing how incompetent he was and all the stuff that she would do, she had done for him. And let's think about the stuff that was unforeseen. It's a lot of people gonna go down in this, my royal family, because it's an embarrassment in that particular jurisdiction and county and state and all of that. And they'll just put another set of devils in there. And basically what they are orchestrating now is, people are going to start resigning because they want to secure their retirement and all these things. That is it. And that is all at the end of the day. And what the fuck you need a grand jury for? This bitch right here got blood on her hands. A lot of other people's blood. I know this was a long video, but like I said, I'm a person, I don't like just mainstream media. I want to get to the nuts and bolts of it and see people are going to various radio stations and different things like that. Shit you would never hear, my royal family. You ain't gonna get this nowhere else but on the True Royal Family or True Royal. So, my royal family, render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.